Welcome back to part two of me talking through the Dublin Racing Festival, reviewing the races from the Sunday. If you haven't watched part one yet, I'll leave a link to this at the end of this video. Go over and make sure you watch that because I'm talking about horses like Vauban and Vassal Vega who definitely left a mark. So hop over and see my thoughts about that. But on with this one, and we'll start off with Galopin Des Champs, who won the Grade 1 over 2 miles 5 furlongs very impressively in the end. He won by 9 lengths, and defeat never really looked out of the question for this horse, who didn't probably jump as good as he did on debut. He made a few novice mistakes, but that could be expected on his second run over fences. And I think Willie Mullins said maybe the test was a bit too much at this stage, maybe the speed that there was going at, because it might just be slightly short of his optimum trip. Who knows in the end? Who knows where we'll see him in the future as well? We'll get onto that in a minute, but he definitely did step forward from first to second run. He recorded an RPR of 163 on debut. That was up to 167 today, and he definitely did beat some very good horses. Just a note for Master McShee, who ran second. That was a brilliant run for Connections, and I'm very happy to see a horse outside of Willie Mullins and the Gordon Elliott yard, perhaps a smaller yard, running a very big race, and he's definitely one with a bright future over the fences. But as for Galopin Des Champs, he was impressive, and the question is, where do we see him next? Will we see him stay at this trip or step up to 3 miles? And for me, I always thought he'd be a 3 mile horse, but after this race I've just got a slight suspicion that 2 miles 5 has done him no hindrance. He's put in two very good performances, and if he does step up to 3 miles, he might face some horses like a Hoy Senior Boy of Man's Game. I think if I was Galopin Des Champs and Willie Mullins, I might be a little bit worried of facing a Hoy Senior over 3 miles if he can put in a good display of jumping. I'm a massive fan of this horse. I've been following this horse for a while. I was at Wetherby when he put in an extremely impressive performance. I think that's gone under the radar. But then the question is, if he stays over 2 mile 5, he'd come up against Bob Ollinger, who's definitely a speedy type, who's won the Ballymore and might just be a very tough opposition to Galopin Des Champs. I think they'd be both pretty much even money if they turned up against each other. That'd be some race. But for me, who knows what Willie Mullins is thinking. I think I wouldn't be surprised to see him in the 2 mile 5 race or the 3 mile race at Cheltenham. I think he's a versatile horse. I'm not sure which would suit best though. Over to the Dublin chase, and it was Chacun Pour Soi who bounced back in some style, won by 12 lengths in the end. I was very keen on this horse beforehand. I think you could just rule out the Sandown run. He was never turned up that day. He was beaten a long way into 5th, and that run was too bad to be true, and you can just put a line through that. He bounced back in the Dublin chase, a race that he's made his own over the last couple of years, and there is question marks over what he's beat. Dunvegan, Captain Guinness, Cashback, Grenadine, who was very poor for Paul Nicholls. That was a wasted trip over. His horses in general aren't running great, but I think it was nice to see him bounce back in good style. He was visually impressive against horses which were just miles inferior to him, and the market principal Grenadine was pretty underwhelming for Paul Nicholls and Barney Frost. And in the Irish Gold Cup as well, he sent over 2 Paul Nicholls, Grenadine and Frodon, both ridden by Barney Frost, and both really didn't perform with much zest. And I think there's definitely something not quite right with that yard at the minute. They're not in the best of form, but Paul Nicholls definitely will bounce back at some point. Over to the Irish Champion hurdle, and that was a good performance as well from Honeysuckle, who she was sent off at 1 to 5, expected to win, and she did what everyone was expecting her to do. She got a good reception before and after the race. She won by 6.5 lengths in the end from Zanahiyr, who probably they might have expected, Connections might have expected to get a little bit closer. They was quite confident beforehand, but Honeysuckle did it easily enough in the end, though she was idling at the end. I don't think once she kicked clear, I think she knew that the race was put to bed and she didn't really have to fully give everything, which is in a sense probably a good way, because you don't want horses emptying themselves when they've already done the business, and that's probably the reason why Honeysuckle has gone on the longevity, winning 14 out of 14 I think it now is under rules, because she doesn't need to give everything 100% of the time, and that's a mark of a true champion, I think. Over to the 335, it was a very interesting novice hurdle before the race, but it turned out to be all about Sir Gerhard, who landed a lot of acres I'm sure I thankfully was on and landed my acre, but he was very good, although novice at a few of the hurdles. I think that would be a little bit of a concern, but he was a bit like Vauban actually. He wasn't great at some of the jumping aspect, but in terms of the engine, he was just had something else compared to the other rivals, and beat Three Stripe Life by 6 lengths in the end. He's performed with great credit. I think he might want a little bit further in time, but he could just be an each-way player for the Supreme Hurdle. Personally, I've got on at bigger prices at around 25 to 1, I think. I tipped him up a few months ago on this channel, and I think he's improving all the time, and he might not have the speed that some of the other horses have if you look at John Bon, etc. But he definitely is a good horse in his own day. Might be slightly better over further, but in the Supreme Hurdle, if they do go very fast, he might just be staying on up that hill. And as for the form, collating it with the English form, well, Colonel Mustard was 12 lengths back in third, and never nearer third, albeit, and he got within 3 lengths of John Bon. So we might just be seeing the emergence of the Irish form being a little bit better than the English form. I think John Bon and Constitution Hill, I think maybe they might just be a little bit short, and they've done a lot in the early season, but I think we've got some Irish horses coming to the fore now, and I definitely wouldn't be a shock to see Sir Gerhard running a big race in the Supreme. If he did turn up, Willie Mullins was deciding between the Supreme and the Ballymore. Would you see him step up into the Ballymore? Well, I don't think he's short of speed, so I don't think it would be the obvious decision to step him up to the Ballymore, but after all, the Ballymore could just be a weaker race in the end. So Willie Mullins, who loves festival winners, never really gets it wrong at the festival as well. So I think Sir Gerhard is in the best hands for whatever race he runs in. And it was a nice ride from Paul Townend as well from the front, and set some good fractions. And there was a lot of horses beyond the second who never really got involved. People who won the horses that was in the Royal Bond. That form hasn't really worked out at all. It was all battered by Sir Gerhard, in fairness, and I think he's definitely one to keep an eye on. So that rounds up part 2, talking through the Sunday's action. For me, it was all about Willie Mullins, really, Galopin Des Champs, Chac and Poursuit, and Sir Gerhard cementing their claims for the festival, and Honeysuckle does what she does best, which is winning the Irish Champion Hurdle in great style. Thanks a lot for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.